There comes a time in every man's life when he is forced to face the truth about himself, not the public version he displays for the world's applause, not the carefully curated mask he wears for social acceptance, but the raw, unpolished reality of his inner state. This confrontation is not pleasant, for it strips away illusions. It is not glamorous, for it is not performed under the spotlight. It is a meeting that takes place in the silent chambers of the mind, behind closed doors, where there is no audience and no applause. And it is there, in the shadows where no one sees, that the seeds of real transformation are planted. The untrained mind recoils from such darkness. It flees toward distraction. It seeks noise, comfort, and the false sense of progress found in constant movement without direction. But the mind of the man who will master life, who will stand as an unshakable pillar in the midst of storms, he welcomes the darkness. He knows that it is the forge in which his character will be tempered. He understands that while the masses seek change in public spectacles, true metamorphosis occurs in solitude, where discipline, clarity, and mastery over the self are born. If you would ascend to the highest ranks of success, you must first conquer the inner chaos that has ruled you without your consent. You must become the master of your emotions, the commander of your thoughts, the architect of your destiny. And understand this: mastery is never granted by the world. It is seized by the individual who dares to claim it. If you allow your emotions to dictate your actions, you hand over the keys to your future. But if you learn to control the currents of thought within you, you control the tide of your life. Most people are prisoners of reaction. They live on the battlefield of impulse, reacting to circumstances, moods, and opinions with no greater command than that of a ship tossed about by the wind. They do not realize that they have the capacity to choose their response in any situation, and that within this choice lies the foundation of their power. The man who reacts is a servant to the world. The man who responds is its master. The first discipline is definiteness of purpose. Without a fixed burning aim to which all actions and thoughts are directed, the mind is a field overgrown with weeds. You must decide, with unshakable clarity, what it is you want from life. And once that decision is made, you must anchor it so deeply in your mind that no storm can uproot it. This purpose becomes your compass. It dictates what you pursue, what you ignore, and what you refuse to tolerate. Every act of discipline, every choice of emotional restraint will be fueled by this purpose. Without it, you will be as a soldier without orders, armed but aimless. The second discipline is self-mastery through emotional detachment. Do not mistake detachment for coldness or apathy. It is neither. It is the deliberate refusal to let fleeting emotions govern long-term decisions. The man who has mastered detachment can walk through provocation without losing his temper, through temptation without surrendering his principles, through praise without becoming inflated, and through criticism without shrinking. He is not numb, he is sovereign. The weak mind believes that to feel strongly is to live deeply. But strength of feeling without strength of control is weakness disguised as passion. Consider the general on the battlefield. If he rushes forward in anger without strategy, his courage becomes his downfall. So too in life, uncontrolled emotion is a liability, not an asset. Your ability to pause, to observe, to remain calm while others panic is the very thing that will elevate you above the masses. Calmness is not passivity, it is power under perfect control. The third discipline is mental discipline through accurate thinking. This is the art of filtering every thought through the lens of truth. Ask of every idea, is this fact or mere opinion? Is this driven by evidence or emotion? Is this guiding me toward my aim or pulling me away? The undisciplined mind entertains every suggestion, every rumor, every whisper of doubt, until it becomes a hall of distorted mirrors. The disciplined mind admits only that which serves its purpose and discards all else. Remember this law. Your outer life is nothing but the reflection of your inner order. If your mind is disorganized, your circumstances will be chaotic. If your mind is disciplined, your results will be precise and intentional. The man who rules his inner world has no need to fear the unpredictability of the outer one. The fourth discipline is autosuggestion. Your mind is fertile ground. It will grow whatever is consistently planted within it. If you allow the seeds of fear, anger, or self-doubt to be sown, they will take root and grow into the thorns that choke your progress. But if you deliberately plant thoughts of confidence, purpose, and mastery, they will bear fruit in your character and actions. This is no mystical idea, it is a psychological fact. Whatever you repeat to yourself with conviction becomes part of your mental reality, and your actions will inevitably align with it. The fifth discipline is personal initiative. Detachment, discipline, and thought mastery are useless without action. The man who knows what to do and does not do it is no better than the man who never knew in the first place. Initiative is the bridge between inner mastery and outer achievement. It is the refusal to wait for permission, the will to advance when others hesitate, the determination to move forward regardless of conditions. Understand this truth. Transformation is not an event. It is a continuous process of decision and action, and it takes place away from the applause, away from the validation of the crowd. The roots grow long before the tree is seen. The stone is shaped long before the statue is revealed. The man is made long before the world calls him successful. If you would rise to the ranks of the unstoppable, you must be willing to work in the darkness where no one is watching. You must forge your will when there is no reward in sight. You must master your thoughts when there is no crisis to force you. You must choose discipline when there is no one to praise you for it. The man who can train himself in private will command respect in public. There will be moments when you are tempted to abandon this path, when the comfort of emotion calls louder than the discipline of thought, when the approval of others seems more rewarding than the approval of your own conscience. In those moments, remember this: every empire falls from within before it falls from without. If you would remain unshakable, you must first remain unshakable inside yourself. The greatest victories you will ever win will not be seen by the world. They will be silent, private, known only to you. The moment you choose restraint instead of reaction, the moment you reject doubt and affirm your purpose, the moment you act when it would have been easier to delay, these are the hidden triumphs that accumulate until the world can no longer ignore the results you produce. Therefore, I tell you, embrace the darkness, for it is there that you will meet yourself. It is there that you will find the steel of your will, and it is there, unseen by the crowd, that you will build the weapon of the successful, an inner world so disciplined, so detached, so governed by purpose, that nothing in the outer world can overthrow it. Because the man who commands himself commands everything. You must come to grips with the truth that the world is governed not by luck, not by the generosity of others, but by laws, laws as precise in the realm of human achievement as the law of gravity is in the physical world. And among these laws is one that only the rarest of men ever understand: the law that the state of your inner world determines the fate of your outer one. The man who is poor in thought will always be poor in result. The man who is rich in control, in clarity, and in purpose will draw wealth, influence, and opportunity to himself as if the world were conspiring in his favor. But let there be no mistake, the world does not conspire for mediocrity. The man who lives by reaction, whose emotions jerk him about like a puppet, whose thoughts shift with the opinions of others, will find that life treats him as he treats himself, with inconsistency, with uncertainty, with a lack of respect. Therefore, I declare to you that emotional detachment is not a mere preference, it is a necessity. Without it, you are a slave to the moment. With it, you become the master of your destiny. Consider this: in the heat of anger, how many foolish words are spoken that cannot be retrieved? In the fog of fear, how many opportunities are missed because the mind is too clouded to see clearly? In the intoxication of excitement, how many reckless decisions are made that later bring regret? The emotionally detached man avoids these traps, not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to let feeling dictate his command. To detach is to rise above the surface of the water, to see the entire battlefield from above, to choose not merely the reaction, but the course. And I tell you plainly, he who chooses his course in calmness wins against those who are carried away by storms. This is where mental discipline becomes your greatest ally. Discipline of thought is the foundation of all mastery. Without it, you will be like a general who commands an army of undisciplined soldiers. They may be many in number, but they are of no use in battle. Your thoughts must obey you. They must march when you tell them to march, halt when you tell them to halt, and attack when you give the command. This is achieved through constant training, the daily habit of observing your mind, of catching it when it drifts into fear, doubt, resentment, or self-pity, and commanding it back to the path of your purpose. Do not underestimate this practice. A single unguarded thought of defeat, if allowed to remain, will invite its companions discouragement, hesitation, inaction until they overrun your will. Likewise, a single thought of courage, when held firmly, will attract reinforcements, determination, initiative, persistence until they overwhelm all opposition. The mind is a magnet, and it draws toward itself that which is in harmony with its dominant state. This is why accurate thinking is not just an advantage, but an armor. Accurate thinking strips away the illusions created by uncontrolled emotion. It asks, is this true? Is this useful? Does this move me toward my goal? If the answer is no, the thought is discarded without sentiment. In the court of your mind, truth must be the only standard by which a thought is admitted or rejected. For if you admit falsehood into your counsel, you will plan based on lies, and your actions will lead you into defeat. And here I must warn you of the enemy that walks unnoticed through most men's lives, the opinion of others. When you allow the approval or disapproval of another to shape your decisions, you have already surrendered your sovereignty. The successful man listens only to those voices that are aligned with his purpose and are grounded in truth. The rest he filters out, for he knows that the crowd changes its mind with the wind, and the man who tries to please it will be as restless as the wind itself. Therefore, train yourself to operate from response rather than reaction. The difference is the difference between a king and a servant. Reaction is immediate, unconsidered, born of impulse. Response is deliberate, calculated, and aligned with your long-term aim. If a man insults you, the reaction is to strike back in anger. The response is to assess whether engaging serves your purpose. 9 times out of 10, silence will be the greater victory. The man who can remain silent when provoked is a man who commands not only the situation but himself. Now, let us speak of the unseen engine that drives all mastery autosuggestion. You are at this very moment programming your mind through the thoughts you dwell upon. Whether you realize it or not, you are telling yourself who you are and what you are capable of. If these messages are vague, conflicting, or negative, your actions will reflect them. But if they are precise, consistent, and positive in alignment with your purpose, they will become the very fuel that powers your will. You cannot plant seeds of weakness in the soil of your mind and expect a harvest of strength, nor can you plant seeds of indecision and expect a crop of decisive action. What you sow, you will reap. Therefore, begin each day by affirming to yourself the man you intend to be, not in shallow words of wishful thinking, but in statements of conviction, as though the transformation were already complete. The mind, once convinced, will work tirelessly to make reality conform to its belief. And here is where the principle of personal initiative ties it all together. The inner work of detachment, discipline, accurate thinking, and autosuggestion is worthless unless it is brought into the world through decisive action. No man was ever remembered for what he intended to do. The world does not reward intention, it rewards execution. The man who acts when others hesitate, who advances when conditions are not yet perfect, who creates opportunity rather than waits for it, this is the man who bends circumstances to his will. You must understand that your rise will be invisible before it becomes undeniable. You will labor in the dark long before the light of recognition ever touches your face. And here is the paradox. The very fact that no one is watching is your greatest advantage. For in this unseen stage, you are free to make mistakes, to adjust your strategy, to fortify your weaknesses without the eyes of the world upon you. When the time comes to step into the light, you will be so prepared that the world will call it sudden success, when in truth it was the result of years of silent preparation. Never despise the season of darkness. It is the womb of greatness. The world you see around you, the commerce, the buildings, the institutions, the fortunes, the failures, all of it is the shadow cast by the invisible world within men's minds. This is why the untrained eye believes that success is a matter of circumstance, while the trained mind knows it is a matter of construction. All achievement is first built in thought, then shaped by discipline, then made flesh through action. But here is the brutal fact. Most men abandon the construction before the foundation is even laid. They quit in the darkness. They cannot endure the weight of silence. They seek the warmth of validation before their work deserves it, and thus they betray their own potential. The successful man, by contrast, understands that the darkness is not the delay of his destiny, it is its preparation. You must come to accept that no worthy transformation happens under the eyes of the impatient. In fact, the presence of an audience too early in your development will corrupt the process. Just as a seed pulled too soon from the soil will never become a tree, so too will your potential die if you seek to display it before it has rooted deep in mastery. This is why emotional detachment is the first shield of the successful. The world will throw distractions at you disguised as opportunities. It will send people who flatter you into complacency, and others who provoke you into self-sabotage. If you cannot detach, you will dance to their music instead of walking your own path. Detachment allows you to see events and people not for how they make you feel in the moment, but for how they affect your mission in the long run. The great strategist knows that not every battle is worth fighting. In fact, some must be avoided entirely, for they would drain resources from the war that matters. You, too, must develop the ability to let certain slights, certain losses, and certain provocations pass unanswered. Your enemies will call it weakness. Let them. For when they have exhausted themselves on meaningless skirmishes, you will strike at the heart of the matter and win the war. This, my friend, is response over reaction. When you react, the world controls you. When you respond, you control the world. Reaction is the echo of the environment. Response is the voice of your purpose. And every moment in life offers you the chance to choose one or the other. Now let us speak of mental discipline. Many think discipline is the ability to act despite difficulty. This is only part of the truth. Real mental discipline is the ability to govern the direction of your thought without allowing external circumstances to dictate it. Most men's thinking is like a leaf carried by the wind, blown here by praise, blown there by criticism, lifted by good fortune, dropped by hardship. The disciplined mind is like the mountain, unmoved by the winds, unshaken by the storms, and yet quietly shaping the weather around it. To achieve this state, you must become a constant observer of your own mind. This is the labor few are willing to perform, for it demands honesty without mercy. You must notice when fear creeps in and strip it of its disguise. You must detect when laziness whispers and cut off its influence before it can plant roots. You must observe when anger rises and cool it before it spills into action. In time, this vigilance will become second nature, and you will command your thoughts as a general commands his troops. But remember, thoughts are not isolated. They are seeds that grow into habits, and habits grow into destiny. If your thoughts are disordered, your habits will be disordered, and your destiny will follow suit. If your thoughts are ordered and disciplined, your habits will be consistent, and your destiny will be inevitable. Here we arrive at the law of accurate thinking. This law demands that you distinguish between fact and opinion, between evidence and emotion. Most men build their decisions on the shifting sands of opinion, and then they wonder why their plans collapse. The accurate thinker builds on the bedrock of verified fact and aligns his actions with it. This does not mean he ignores vision or imagination. It means he ensures that imagination is informed by truth rather than fantasy. To practice accurate thinking, you must learn to question every premise, even the ones you have carried for years, especially the ones you have carried for years. For many failures are born not of poor execution, but of beginning with a false assumption. The man who questions, tests, and verifies before committing his resources will avoid 9 out of 10 mistakes that ruin the careless. Yet thinking alone is insufficient. It must be reinforced through autosuggestion. The mind, like a field, cannot remain fallow. Something will grow there whether you plant it or not. If you do not deliberately plant the seeds of purpose, confidence, and discipline, the weeds of doubt, fear, and laziness will take root by default. This is why every man who seeks mastery must speak to himself daily with conviction, affirming not only what he intends to do, but who he intends to be. Do not dismiss this as mere repetition. The subconscious mind is the silent engine of all behavior, and it responds most powerfully to repeated, emotionally charged statements. Tell it you are disciplined, and act in accordance with that statement, and in time it will reject undisciplined behavior as unnatural. Tell it you are courageous, and act accordingly, and fear will find no home in you. The world will call it confidence. You will know it as self-command. Finally, let us tie these laws together with personal initiative. All the discipline, detachment, and inner mastery in the world mean nothing if you will not move. The decisive man acts in the absence of perfect conditions. He understands that hesitation allows opportunities to vanish and obstacles to grow. Initiative is not recklessness, it is the refusal to be paralyzed by uncertainty. The man of initiative advances, adjusts, and advances again until the objective is won. And here lies a truth the impatient will never understand. When you act consistently from a place of inner mastery, your results will seem, to the outside world, almost supernatural. They will call it talent, luck, or fate. But you will know the truth that it was forged in the dark, in the unseen hours when you mastered yourself while others were busy trying to impress the crowd. So I say to you again, embrace the darkness, for it is there that your mind will harden, your will shall sharpen, and your destiny will take form long before the world can see it. There is a reason the majority fail and the few succeed, and it has nothing to do with intelligence, education, or even natural talent. It is because most men never govern themselves. They drift through life at the mercy of their moods, their impulses, and the noise of the crowd. They allow circumstances to mold them, rather than molding circumstances to suit their will. The rare man who does succeed, the man who seems untouchable, unshakable, and unstoppable, has mastered what I now tell you is the supreme command, the governance of the inner world. Let us now examine the first pillar of this governance in its fullest form, definiteness of purpose. Without a central aim, a man's efforts are scattered like a beam of light diffused into a mist. But when that aim is defined with precision and held with the intensity of a burning fire, his energy concentrates into a force that cuts through obstacles as a laser cuts through steel. Think of it as the captain's chart in the storm without it. Every wind is a threat. With it, every wind can be harnessed. Cause and effect are merciless here. If your purpose is vague, your actions will be unfocused. Unfocused actions produce inconsistent results. Inconsistent results produce frustration and surrender. But if your purpose is exact, your actions align. Aligned actions produce consistent results, and consistent results create momentum, momentum that becomes nearly impossible to stop. This is why you must never approach life with a half-formed intention. Decide precisely what you want, why you want it, and what you are willing to give in exchange for it. Write it, speak it, affirm it until it becomes the central axis around which your mind revolves. The second pillar is emotional detachment, the art of remaining master over yourself regardless of the chaos outside you. This is not the deadening of feeling, it is the control of it. Without detachment, you are a puppet of circumstances. The stock market drops and you panic. A competitor mocks you and you waste days plotting revenge. A friend doubts you and you abandon your plan. In all these cases, the external event is not the real destroyer, your emotional enslavement island. Detachment gives you the space between event and action, the breathing room in which wisdom operates. Consider a skilled chess player. He does not move his pieces in reaction to every threat. He sees the whole board. He anticipates, calculates, and only then executes. The novice, driven by fear of losing a piece, reacts impulsively and loses the game. In life, as in chess, the detached mind is the one that wins. Next comes mental discipline, the law that every thought must serve your aim or be discarded. This is not merely avoiding negative thinking, it is the rigorous curation of your entire mental environment. Picture your mind as a fortress. Every thought that enters is either a soldier fighting for your cause or an infiltrator seeking to sabotage it. You, as the commander, must interrogate every one. The undisciplined man lets anything in, and soon the enemy holds the gates from within. The disciplined man allows only those thoughts that strengthen his position, sharpen his strategy, and fuel his advance. Here is the cause and effect chain. Disciplined thoughts form disciplined actions. Disciplined actions forge disciplined habits. Disciplined habits create a disciplined life, and a disciplined life is a life of power. Conversely, undisciplined thoughts infect actions, which become erratic habits, which decay into a chaotic life. The law works both ways. You decide which side it serves. The fourth pillar is accurate thinking. The mind that cannot separate fact from opinion, evidence from rumor, will forever be led astray. This law requires you to demand proof before belief, to weigh sources before accepting their conclusions, and to be ruthless in discarding even long-cherished assumptions if they do not align with reality. Accurate thinking is the scalpel that removes illusions. It refuses to let the mind be swayed by the fever of the crowd or the seduction of the popular. Here lies a critical truth. Every failure begins with an inaccurate thought accepted as truth. The man who loses his fortune believes the market will always rise. The general who loses the war believes the enemy is weaker than he island. The friend who betrays you believes you will never find out. All of them are destroyed by an error in thinking. The accurate thinker survives and thrives because he sees reality as it is and deals with it accordingly. The fifth pillar is autosuggestion, the deliberate programming of the subconscious mind. Understand that your subconscious does not care whether the messages you feed it are true or false, wise or foolish. It will accept them as commands if repeated often enough with emotion. If you constantly tell yourself, "I am unlucky," your subconscious will direct your actions to confirm it. If you tell yourself, "I am disciplined and purposeful," it will direct your actions to make it so. This is why every word you say to yourself is a seed, and seeds grow. Cause and effect is simple here. If you plant positive, purposeful, and empowering thoughts daily, you will harvest corresponding actions and results. If you plant fear, doubt, and indecision, you will harvest paralysis and failure. The soil of the mind is neutral. It will grow whatever you plant. Your responsibility is to choose the seed. The sixth pillar is personal initiative. No law will serve you if you will not act. The greatest plans mean nothing without execution. Opportunity, contrary to what the lazy believe, does not knock politely at the door. It passes by quickly, and only the man who seizes it without hesitation will benefit. Initiative is action before conditions are perfect. Initiative is moving when others wait. Initiative is creating the next step when the path ahead is unclear. This law has its own cause and effect. The man who acts consistently gains experience. Experience builds competence. Competence builds confidence. Confidence fuels more action. And this cycle, once set in motion, becomes a self-reinforcing engine of achievement. Now, combine these 6 pillars, and you will see the whole architecture of inner mastery. Definiteness of purpose gives you direction. Emotional detachment keeps you steady. Mental discipline keeps you focused. Accurate thinking keeps you aligned with reality. Autosuggestion keeps your subconscious in harmony with your aims. Personal initiative turns all of this into tangible results, and all of it happens in the dark before the world sees, before the applause comes, before the recognition arrives. The darkness is where the roots grow. The darkness is where the steel is forged. The darkness is where the successful man becomes unstoppable. Definiteness of purpose has been the invisible backbone of every empire, invention, and fortune in human history. Consider the story of Andrew Carnegie, who arrived in America as a penniless boy and rose to become one of the wealthiest industrialists the world had ever known. He did not stumble upon his fortune by wandering from one opportunity to another. From the moment he began working in a telegraph office, he fixed his mind on the aim of becoming the master of the steel industry. Every decision, every alliance, every risk was measured against this aim. Others of his time possessed equal intelligence, equal access to capital, even greater connections, yet they drifted. Carnegie did not drift. He steered with precision, and the tide of history carried him to his chosen port. Understand this. Life offers an endless sea of distractions masquerading as opportunities. Without definiteness of purpose, you will say yes to too many, and the currents will scatter you across aimless waters. But with definiteness, you say no to all but the few that serve your mission. Every no preserves your energy. Every yes is strategic. The result is not a life of frantic chasing, but of deliberate conquest. Emotional detachment is the secret strength behind leaders who remain calm when empires tremble. Picture Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. He was surrounded by criticism from his cabinet, from the press, from his own generals. Defeat followed defeat in the early years, and many called for his resignation. A lesser man, ruled by pride or anger, might have lashed out or abandoned his post. Lincoln did neither. He listened, weighed, and acted according to the long-term vision of preserving the Union. When generals failed, he replaced them without public theatrics. When newspapers slandered him, he did not waste a single speech defending himself. His detachment allowed him to outlast political enemies and military disasters alike until victory was secured. Cause and effect. Had Lincoln reacted emotionally to every provocation, he would have made enemies of allies, burned bridges, and fractured his own coalition. His restraint did not make him passive, it made him effective. Mental discipline is not always visible to the public, but its absence always island. Consider Thomas Edison. Over the course of developing the electric light bulb, he performed thousands of experiments, most of which failed. The undisciplined mind would have surrendered after a dozen. The impulsive mind would have abandoned the project after 100. Edison's mind was trained for endurance. He kept his thoughts fixed on the objective, refused the entrance of discouragement, and treated each failure as data. The world called it genius. It was discipline, cause and effect. Without the discipline to hold one's mind on a single goal for years, the breakthrough never comes. The mind that is easily distracted will always quit too soon. The disciplined mind will always arrive before the reward is claimed. Accurate thinking is the compass that prevents even the most determined man from marching in the wrong direction. Consider the fate of Napoleon Bonaparte. His rise was meteoric because he saw reality clearly. He understood the strengths and weaknesses of his armies and those of his enemies. But in his later years, intoxicated by his own legend, he allowed opinion to replace fact. He convinced himself he could invade Russia without proper preparation, ignoring the brutal truth of distance and winter. His defeat was not due to a lack of courage or strategy, but due to an inaccurate assessment of reality. The accurate thinker is not seduced by his own emotions or the flattery of others. He demands proof. He questions assumptions. He would rather delay action than advance on a false premise. And because of this, when he does act, his chances of success multiply. Autosuggestion is less visible in history, but it is always present. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." This was not a clever phrase. It was a reflection of the law he lived by. Ford repeatedly told himself and his team that they would produce a low-cost automobile for the masses, despite engineers telling him it was impossible. For years, his subconscious mind worked on this command, finding solutions, assembling ideas, attracting talent, until the Model T became a reality. Millions called it an industrial revolution. Ford called it persistence and belief. Cause and effect. When you impress a thought upon the subconscious mind daily, it begins to shape your behavior, attract resources, and filter perception toward fulfilling it. When you fail to direct your subconscious, it accepts whatever the world feeds it, and the world feeds fear. Personal initiative is the bridge between all inner mastery and outer results. Look to the life of Theodore Roosevelt. He was a sickly child, told by doctors to avoid strenuous activity. He could have accepted this as fate. Instead, he took initiative to rebuild his health through rigorous physical training, boxing, and outdoor adventures. This habit of action bled into his political career, where he would charge into reforms, confront corruption, and take decisive steps before others had even formed committees. His presidency was marked by movement, and movement created momentum, which created impact. Cause and effect. The man who waits for perfect conditions will wait forever. The man who acts transforms imperfect conditions into stepping stones. Initiative is the difference between wishing for a better future and creating one. Now, bind these examples together, and you will see that they all share a common truth. Mastery begins where the world cannot see you. Carnegie's aim was formed in youth before his wealth appeared. Lincoln's restraint was practiced in private before it was tested in war. Edison's discipline was built in the laboratory when no one cared. Ford's belief was affirmed daily before the factory was built. Roosevelt's initiative was born in the lonely hours of physical training before the public knew his name. The darkness, the unseen, the unpraised, the unnoticed, is the crucible of all achievement. Principles without practice are like weapons left rusting in their scabbards. They look impressive, but they will not win you the battle. If you wish to command your inner world, you must not only understand the 6 pillars, you must drill them into habit until they operate automatically under pressure. Drills for definiteness of purpose. Each morning, before the day begins, Write your chief aim in life in a single sentence so clear that even a stranger could read it and know exactly what you are pursuing. Read it aloud with conviction. Then ask yourself, what 3 actions will I take today that move me toward this aim? These actions must be specific and measurable, not vague wishes. At day's end, review them and record whether you acted or failed. This daily measurement is how purpose stays alive. Cause and effect. When you measure daily progress toward a fixed aim, your subconscious mind begins to seek ways to improve that progress. You notice opportunities you would have missed. You feel the sting of wasted time more acutely. The aim becomes not a dream, but an operating order. Drills for emotional detachment. Choose one event each day that would normally provoke you a rude remark, a delay, a minor setback, and deliberately respond with calm, not passive calm, but active composure. Ask yourself in that moment, will reacting advance my purpose or will it waste my energy? Each time you pass this test, you strengthen the reflex of control. Also, practice mental distancing. When an emotion rises, imagine stepping outside yourself and observing it as if it belonged to another person. From this vantage, it becomes easier to evaluate the best response. Over time, you will discover that you can experience emotion without becoming enslaved by it. Cause and effect. When you train yourself to pause before acting, your responses grow sharper, your judgment clearer, and your reputation more formidable. The undetached man leaks power. The detached man contains it. Drills for mental discipline. Set aside 15 minutes daily for thought inventory. Sit alone with pen and paper. Write down the most persistent thoughts you have had in the past 24 hours. For each one, ask, does this thought serve my purpose? If not, replace it immediately with one that does. This is not a game, it is mental housekeeping. A disciplined mind is a clean mind. Add to this the single focus drill. Take one task, reading a chapter, writing a page, solving a problem, and work on it without allowing a single unrelated thought or action to intrude. Start with short intervals, then lengthen them. This trains the ability to hold the mind on command. Cause and effect. A mind trained to obey in small exercises will obey in great crises. Undisciplined thought in peace guarantees chaos in war. Drills for accurate thinking. Each week, choose one belief you hold about business, people, or yourself and attempt to disprove it using evidence. If you cannot disprove it, the belief stands strengthened. If you can, you must adjust it. This practice removes the deadly habit of clinging to falsehood. Before making any significant decision, write down the facts you know for certain, the assumptions you are making, the opinions you have heard from others. Act only on the facts while keeping assumptions and opinions under review. Cause and effect. Accurate thinking prevents waste of time, of resources, of life. It builds a mind that is trustworthy even under strain. Drills for autosuggestion. Create a personal command statement, a short paragraph describing the person you are becoming and the results you are achieving. Write it in the present tense, with emotion. Repeat it aloud upon waking and before sleep, when the subconscious mind is most receptive. As you speak, visualize yourself living it. Keep a victory journal in which you record daily any action, however small, that aligns with your command statement. Review it weekly to reinforce the identity you are building. Cause and effect. Repeated suggestion hardens into belief. Belief directs behavior. Behavior creates results that confirm the belief. This is the cycle of self-creation. Drills for personal initiative. Once each week, choose one important action in your life or work and take it before you are told, asked, or reminded. Do not announce it, simply do it. The aim is to train yourself to advance without external prompting. Practice opportunity scanning. Each morning ask, where in my sphere of influence can I create progress today without permission? Take one step in that direction before the day ends. Cause and effect. Initiative creates momentum, and momentum multiplies opportunities. The man of initiative is never idle, for he makes his own conditions favorable. If you perform these drills with the same seriousness with which a soldier trains for war, you will discover that self-command becomes instinctive. You will act with calm under pressure, think with clarity under confusion, and move with purpose while others freeze. But know this, the drills will not reward you in the first week or even the first month. The darkness will seem long. The applause will not come. The temptation to abandon the practice will whisper daily. And here lies the moment of separation between the ordinary and the extraordinary. The ordinary man quits when no one notices his effort. The extraordinary man understands that no one should notice yet. The roots are still growing. The foundation is still being laid. The weapon is still being forged. And when at last the day comes to step from darkness into light, your mastery will be so complete, your movement so precise, and your presence so commanding that the world will believe it happened overnight. You will know it was years in the making. The darkness will have been your ally. The man who masters even one of these laws gains an advantage over the undisciplined. But the man who masters all of them and uses them together becomes a force the world cannot ignore. Each principle is powerful in isolation, yet it multiplies in power when combined with the others. The man of definiteness of purpose will outperform the drifting, but when he adds emotional detachment, he becomes immune to the distractions that derail most men. Add mental discipline, and he can hold his aim through any length of struggle. Add accurate thinking, and he avoids the traps of false premises. Add autosuggestion, and he aligns his subconscious with his purpose, giving him constant reinforcement. Add personal initiative, and he turns all of this inner preparation into outer conquest. Consider how they reinforce one another in cause and effect. A clear purpose without discipline is like a ship with a destination, but no captain to hold the wheel storms will push it off course. But discipline keeps it steady. Discipline without accurate thinking is like a soldier who obeys orders that are based on faulty intelligence. He marches straight into defeat. Accurate thinking corrects the course. Accurate thinking without emotional detachment is like a brilliant strategist who loses his composure in the heat of battle. His reason is overwhelmed by panic. Detachment preserves his judgment. Detachment without initiative is like a wise man who never leaves his study. His wisdom remains untested. Initiative puts wisdom into action. Initiative without a purpose is like a man running at full speed. Without knowing where he is going, he wastes energy and motion. Without progress, purpose directs his energy. Autosuggestion strengthens them all. It keeps purpose vivid, discipline reinforced, thinking clear, detachment firm, and initiative natural. When these laws are woven together, they form not just a set of habits, but an operating system for achievement. You no longer fight for composure, it is natural. You no longer search for clarity, it is constant. You no longer force yourself to act, action is your default. And when you live this way, you create a presence that others can sense. You walk into a room, and those around you feel a quiet authority, though they cannot explain it. They sense that you are not easily moved, not easily deceived, not easily provoked. They sense that your time has direction, your words have weight, and your decisions have purpose. This presence is not charisma, it is the byproduct of self-command. But I warn you, as your mastery grows, the world will test you more severely. Opportunities will arise that tempt you to break your own laws. Praise will tempt you to abandon discipline. Criticism will tempt you to abandon purpose. Urgency will tempt you to act without thought. These tests are not signs that you are failing, they are signs that you are progressing. The world tests the strength of a structure before trusting it with weight. When you feel these tests, remember this law: every external challenge is a mirror of an internal state. If chaos unsettles you, it is because there is still chaos within. If insults anger you, it is because there is still insecurity within. If opportunity makes you reckless, it is because there is still impatience within. The way to master the outer test is always to master its inner counterpart. This is why the darkness, the private hours of unseen labor, is so vital. It is there you confront the weaknesses that would betray you in public. It is there you notice that your patience is short, your thinking sloppy, your detachment fragile, and it is there that you strengthen them without witnesses. When the test comes, you will not need to pretend composure. You will simply be composed. The man who has lived this way for years becomes what I call internally inevitable. His results may take time, but they will come, because his system of thought, emotion, and action allows for no other outcome. He does not merely hope for success, he is built for it. The laws he lives by make the result a matter of cause and effect. The drift of the average man is caused by the absence of such laws. He wakes with no clear purpose, reacts to the day's events, entertains every thought that enters his mind, believes without verification, lets his subconscious run wild, and waits for others to tell him what to do. His results are accidents, occasional wins surrounded by long stretches of confusion. The life of the mastered man is the opposite. He wakes with purpose, filters every event through detachment, keeps his thoughts disciplined, acts only on facts, programs his mind deliberately, and advances without waiting for permission. His results are not accidents. They are the harvest of laws applied consistently in the unseen hours. This is why the public so often calls such men lucky. They do not understand the darkness. They see the day of harvest, but not the years of planting. They see the victory, but not the discipline that won it. They see the composure, but not the countless moments of restraint. And here is a final truth. The man who understands these laws and applies them does not fear losing what he gains. Why? Because what he has built comes from within. Fortunes, positions, and titles may come and go, but the mind that created them can create them again. This is the ultimate freedom, to know that your wealth, your influence, your stability are not held in the hands of others, but in the structure of your own mind. Therefore, I tell you, guard the darkness. Cherish the hours when no one is watching. Hold yourself to your laws, even when there is no immediate reward. For the man who wins in the dark will never fear the light. The time has come to tell you something that most will not accept, because to accept it is to remove every excuse they have lived with. The truth is that success is never given, never inherited, never stumbled upon. It is constructed deliberately, in solitude, through the disciplined governance of the inner world. All else is theater, all else is illusion. The man who refuses to master himself will live in chains, chains of his own forging. He will be bound by his moods, enslaved by the opinions of others, paralyzed by indecision, and thrown into disarray by every wind of fortune. No amount of luck, no inheritance, no accidental opportunity will save him for long, because the moment challenge comes, and it always comes, the structure of his life will collapse. But the man who builds himself in the dark, the man who hardens his will through purpose, who tempers his judgment through detachment, who sharpens his mind through discipline, who filters it through accuracy, who programs it through suggestion, and who drives it through initiative, this man becomes a fortress. He does not fear loss because he knows he can rebuild. He does not fear enemies because he knows he can outlast. He does not fear chaos because he knows it will break against his walls and fall away. You have within you this same capacity, but capacity is nothing without conversion into action. Thinking about purpose will not give you one. Admiring discipline will not give you discipline. Reading about detachment will not make you detached. The laws must be lived until they are in your marrow, until they are the reflexes of your mind, until they are so much a part of you that to abandon them would be to abandon yourself. And here lies the line that separates the few from the many. The many will nod in agreement. They will feel a brief spark of inspiration, and then they will return to the drift. The few will take these laws and turn them into a personal constitution, a code that governs every thought, word, and action. And as a nation is shaped by the constitution it lives under, so will your life be shaped by the code you live by. You must be willing to give up the comfort of drift. You must be willing to spend years in the shadows building strength before a single person notices. You must be willing to seem slow to act while you are in fact advancing with precision. You must be willing to let others spend their energy on battles of ego while you conserve yours for battles of destiny. Because this is the weapon of the successful. They are prepared long before the world calls upon them. And when the call comes, they are ready not because the moment is easy, but because they have become equal to the moment. Look now to your own life. Do you wake with a purpose clear enough to cut through any distraction? Do you hold your emotions in check, or do they hold you? Do you choose your thoughts as carefully as you choose your allies? Do you refuse falsehood even when it flatters you? Do you program your mind daily with the identity you demand of yourself? Do you act without waiting for permission? If you cannot answer yes to each of these, then you know your work. And you must begin now, not when the conditions are perfect, not when you feel like it, not when others approve now, because every day you delay, the drift deepens. And every day you obey your own laws, the mastery strengthens. There will be no applause at the start. There will be no audience in the dark. You will work alone. You will fight the battle against yourself in silence. You will endure the temptation to quit. And you will win not with a shout, but with the steady hammer of daily obedience to your code. And one day, when the light comes, the world will see what you have become, but by then, the applause will be meaningless, because the real victory will have been won long ago in the quiet hours when you mastered yourself. That is the secret. That is the weapon. That is why real transformation always happens in the dark, because the man who has conquered himself has nothing left to fear.